before we start, I just wanted a word with you about damp stretching these pieces. And don't cut them out yet until you've finished hand embroidering on them. Should have said that the other day. I hope nobody's done that, but it doesn't really matter if you do. But because if you're going to damp stretch and you've cut out, then you're going to have to pin in the very edges. But don't forget, just get a pin. Don't forget that you've got all this machine work that'll work as an anchor. So you could pin into that edge there, say. Okay. And pin into that edge there. And you'll find that it ruches like that, but then when you come to do this way, it does flatten it out. Alright, so there's that. But if you've left it all together and you've hand embroidered and you want to damp stretch it, then I would just turn over a couple of times at the top of the lace, like that, to create quite a thick roll of lace and pin it in there. And the same at the bottom. I'm not going to damp stretch this, but I just want to show you. And then there again, roll it over at the bottom. So that's how I would do that. That's how I approach the damp stretching for these pieces. But like I say, if you have pulled it out, sorry, cut it out, you can still do it into the edges where your thicker machine stitches. So I just wanted to say that. And like the snippet cloth, I could press that. There's no hand embroidery on that, so I could put that face down on a towel and iron it, and it would be okay. And then I could hand stitch on it. Having said that, I started hand stitching on one last night, like I said in the last video, and I didn't iron it because I didn't feel it needed it. I'll just put this away and I hope it doesn't fall over. If there's a loud bang in a minute, that's because it's fell over. So here it is, okay, and I absolutely love it. So all I've done so far is buttonhole laced around 2 of the holes and added bullion knots to the edge of one of them. Okay, so I'm going to run through that now, and also inserting inserting something behind these holes to add more focus, and doing a bumpy bit on the top. And there's another £1 for my forgetful jar because I've forgot my wadding, so I'm just going to have to get up. It's actually just behind me, so I'm hoping I don't bang the camera. Just give me a sec. Got some there. So I'll come back in now. But the first thing I'm going to do is insert something behind. So I'm going to put it in a hoop, and I've done, after yesterday, well, the last video about making this, I went out and bought some white thread. Remember I had issues with the off-white thread. I went and bought white thread and made some more. So that's one. And on here I've made 2. They're separated. So what I will do when I've embroidered these and damp stretched them, I'll cut them out, and that'll give me 2 pieces off that bit of lace. Alright. So I'll just get my hoop. I'm so much in love with this. So very much in love with it. Beautiful, beautiful cloth. So I'm just pulling this to try and get it tight in the hoop. And then I will try and pull in with the camera so you can see what I've done so far. Right, so perhaps you can see already, but can you see? Round there and round there, and then the bullion knots. Now I do want to buttonhole around the edge before I insert something behind, because I just think, I know you might think I'm obsessed and you might think it's very repetitive considering what we've been doing in this class, but I just find that that's what works best for me. You know, that's what it just does it for me. You know, you'll have your own stitches that do it for you. That's what does it for me. So I'm thinking I need to move this within the hoop to give me opportunity to be able to buttonhole around that. I want to buttonhole around that one. So if I just move it slightly to there, so that that's away from the side, and then pull it. Now what I did with this last night, I used kind of the longest, finest needle I had because it was the sharpest one I could find. I've got needles, this one's really bent. It's a milliner's needle that I use for bullion knots, okay. But I've also got very long ones that tend not to bend, and they're basting needles or tacking needles. So I've been using that one to do the first row of buttonhole lace around these holes. So I'll get a bit of thread and thread my needle. Okay, now the thing about this is we don't want any knots, do we, anywhere near, because it's so fine. But the beauty of this cloth is you've already laid a lot of stitches on your sewing machine. So what I'm going to try and do is just feed my end, I haven't knotted it, through some of these machine stitches on the back as a means of securing it, and then I don't need any kind of knot. So if I pull it through once and catch the end, and then just go back again slightly and go through again, and I'm going through machine stitching here, so hopefully it's not visible on the front, and again through machine stitching. Okay, so that's that thread secure with no knots or tails that can work the way to the front. And I'm literally now just going to do my first row of buttonhole lace all around this. And don't forget, it gets very thick in some areas, but that is a brilliant area for securing your stitches that you can use as an anchor for your embroidery. So if I just go all the way around, if you can hear that rattling, it's my bracelet catching on the table. Can you hear it? I could move it around, but it'll only fall down again. So all the way around. It might take me a couple of minutes to get all the way around here. I really hope that you all fall in love with this as much as I do, because it's such a good feeling, I can't tell you. I was so happy last night doing this. I don't know what noise is outside, very noisy. You may have that reference to David Beckham in the last video. I know my needles, my threads come off my needle. I do think David Beckham is extremely handsome, I really do. But I have another idol. If you live in the UK, do you watch Emmerdale? I have to tell you that I just think Kane Dingle is so hot. When nobody understands it, none of my friends are like, you're joking, no. I don't know, it just does something to me. So if you ever see Emmerdale and you look at Kane Dingle, you can think that I'll be watching it and I'll be in heaven. And do you know, if you watch Emmerdale, if you don't watch Emmerdale, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I do apologise. But do you know Rona in Emmerdale, the female vet? Well, that's his wife in real life. So I wasn't quick enough. Be still my beating heart. So not only did I have this lace giving me palpitations last night, I had Kane Dingle giving me palpitations as well. Right, so I'm probably halfway around now, but even now, even just looking at that now, it's just, I hope you understand. I know you do understand. I just know that you do understand. Got caught around my Glastonbury bracelet there. My husband's a nurse, I don't know if you know that, some of you do, and he's not allowed to have anything, to wear anything below the elbow for infection control, so he had to cut his off. Mine, keeping mine on, trying to make it last till next year. And this long dangly bit, it says void. You'd think you could cut that off, but if somebody I know did that, cut it off and then the whole thing unravelled, so that's why I haven't cut mine off. So that's the bit that stays wet when you've been in the shower and you forget. You think, why is my arm wet? And then you forget that that's still wet. My kids think I'm sad. And my thread's come off my needle again. Concentrate, Mrs. Ruane, concentrate. Thread it again. Well, can you see already how much different that looks to that? Okay. So I do think this buttonholing around edges and internal holes is a worthy obsession because it just adds so much to these pieces. Nearly there with the first one. I can't wait for tonight. I can't wait for meal to be over, the kitchen to be sorted out after eating, and my husband to clear off to work because he works night shifts, and it'll just be me and Kane Dingle and this lovely piece of embroidery. Can't wait. All the way around. And I'm back at the beginning now. So I take it to the back, and you might think, what's the point? Because you're going to go around again, but the point is because it seals that, it finishes that run, okay? And then bring it back to the front and swap my needle for a blunt needle, and then do my weavy bits around this hole, which in theory should not take as long. I mean, in the normal course of events, I don't care how long something takes me, but I'm just conscious of people watching videos and waiting for me to get round to the next stage. The more time consuming, the better for me. I love time consuming, laborious. My friend once told me that I thrive on the mundane and tedious, and I do. What can I say? What can I say? So I'm going all the way around again, hoping against hope that I don't run out of thread. So perhaps I should have done this last night and had this ready, because you've seen me do this before, haven't you? But then if that was the case, I wouldn't have been able to tell you about Kane Dingle, would I? Because I'm sure you're all much more complete people today after hearing that. Certainly feel better about yourselves anyway, with an awareness of what a loser I am. Unobtainable men, and you know what, I'm married, you know, bless him, you know, I wouldn't swap him for anything, but we all have dreams, don't we? My daughter once said to me, because I said something about David Beckham, she was about 15, I'm telling you mum, if you leave dad for David Beckham, I'll never speak to you again, as if it was a possibility. I laughed for days, I was like, yeah, okay. And that's going to happen how? You leave my dad for David Beckham. Chance of you fine thing. Right, all the way around. I think Helen's dream guy is Bradley Cooper. You probably know him if you're English, American, Australian, whatever, because he's a famous actor. I think that's her dream guy. My son's dream girl is Cheryl Cole. I don't know if you'll know her if you're American, but the English people know her. She's not good enough for him, I don't think. Anyway, she's too old for him. She'd be a cougar. Is this an embroidery class or a dating website? Just get my twist out of my thread. Buttonhole stitch. Instead of talking about unobtainable romantic liaisons, I should be talking about embroidery and stitch and cloth. But you know, isn't that, to be honest, isn't that kind of a measure of how relaxing this is and how your mind can wander when you're doing this? And now we all know where my mind wanders to when I'm doing this. Although, to be fair, a lot of the time my mind wanders to my nana, lace and stitch and embroidery. Always, without fail, brings memories of my nanas, both my nanas. Right, down to the back, okay, and thread it through again, the machine stitched areas to secure it. We don't want any knots going on here at all. Okay, and again, and then cut that off. So that's now ready to accept something as a further embellishment behind that little window. So that's where this comes in. Okay, I'm just going to put my needle away and I'm going to have to check the time because I might have to stop and turn off just to go and put my oven on. So, I'm alright for 2 more minutes. So what I'm going to do now is I want to put some of this at the back of here. Now bear in mind, I've picked something delicate and pretty, okay, but I've also picked something that's got a certain solidity that isn't present in the lace because that'll provide a better contrast. And I'm just going to pin it in for now. Now ideally, well not ideally, but what I have done before is I've actually embroidered pieces of silk with French knots and bullion knots to create a really encrusted texture. Then I've damp stretched that and then I've put that at the back of these things. That works beautifully, that's an idea for you. So now what I'm going to do, I'm pinned and I'm going to tack it, baste it there so I can remove the pins. Little scissors. Little scissors. And I'll get my basting needle back. And I'm not going to put a knot in this because I want it to be able to unpick easily. And I don't know if I've said this to you, I only ever tack with white or off-white thread. Because if I was to tack with anything different, I could leave fibres in there that aren't visible to the naked eye, but then when you come to take pictures they're so obvious, so I don't run the risk of leaving any fibres in there that are a different colour that would scream that they were there. So I'm literally just going to do big tacking stitches over here, okay, away from the edge, just to secure that in there, and then I can get rid of those pins so I can take that one out. I remembered my pins, are you impressed? Those of you doing Simply Stitch 4 should be very impressed that I've actually remembered my pins. Right, so that is now tacked in there and it's secure. Okay, so I'll take that out and then cut that off. And then what I'm going to do, because I don't want that fabric hanging down at the back getting in the way when I'm stitching, is I am going to trim this when it's done, but I'm also going to trim it now so that I've got minimal fabric there to be concerned with while I'm embroidering, okay? And you might think, well, you're not going to be able to use that little bit now, are you? But yes I am. Snippet cloth, see? Save everything. I've got a jar, a big glass jar that I keep my snippets in. So I'll put them in something and keep them. So now I have to hand embroider that down, okay? But the first thing I'm going to do is go and put my oven on. I'll be back in a second.